If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Continuing. In the penthouse of one of London's most luxurious buildings overlooking Hyde Park, Dr. Thomas Albright adjusted his Italian silk tie as he watched the sunset paint the metropolis's skyline. At 45, the renowned cardiovascular surgeon from St. Thomas's Hospital had rebuilt his life after a painful divorce 3 years prior. Beside him, Camilla, his 8-year-old daughter, spun around, showing off a turquoise blue dress that matched her eyes. "Daddy, will Veronica like my dress?" the girl asked, interrupting his thoughts. Thomas smiled, adjusting a bow in his daughter's hair. "She'll love it, princess. You look beautiful." The intercom rang, announcing that Mrs. Zelma, the housekeeper, had finished setting the table for the celebratory dinner. 6 months of relationship with Veronica Maxwell, the head nurse of the pediatric ward, deserved a special celebration. It wasn't just a new love blossoming, but also the promise of family reconstruction that Camilla so desperately needed. "Doctor, everything is ready," Zelma informed. "The chef has already started preparing the dishes, and the flower arrangements have arrived." "Thank you, Zelma. You can go home now." Veronica insisted on serving dessert herself. She said she prepared something special. Across town, on the outskirts of Shoreditch, an 11-year-old girl was collecting cans in a square. Bee, as she was known by local merchants, had survived on the streets since the shelter where she lived closed due to lack of funds. Clever and observant, she had found a perfect hiding place: the abandoned garage of a building under construction, coincidentally a few blocks from the building where Dr. Thomas lived. For weeks, Bee had watched that family from afar. First out of curiosity, then for something she couldn't explain. A growing unease every time she saw that elegant woman enter the building. There was something in her gaze, in her measured gestures, that seemed to clash with her impeccable appearance. That night, Bee decided to get closer. With skills acquired on the streets, she climbed the tree that offered a partial view of the penthouse balcony. From her hiding place among the foliage, she saw the set table, the smiling doctor, the girl spinning in her blue dress. Soon the private elevator opened, and Veronica emerged, stunning in a red dress carrying a small thermal case. Hugs, kisses, raised glasses. From her vantage point, Bee watched them settle down for dinner. The scene looked like something out of a margarine commercial: the perfect family, the spectacular apartment, the gourmet food. But something in Veronica's expression as she looked at the girl sent shivers down Bee's spine. It was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Between courses, Bee noticed when Veronica went to the kitchen alone, carrying her thermal case. With precise movements and furtive glances, the woman took out a small vial and added a few drops to a glass of juice. Then, with the same calculated elegance, she returned to the table, placing the juice specifically in front of Camilla. Bee's heart pounded. That didn't seem normal. Instinctively, the girl climbed down the tree and ran to the building's entrance. "Miss, I need to speak to the doctor on the top floor," she shouted to the receptionist. "Get out of here, girl." "You can't just come in like that," the employee replied, signaling to the security guard. "It's urgent. His wife is putting something in his daughter's drink." The security guard grabbed her arm. Come on. We can't have street children bothering the residents." "But it's true, I saw it." "Please," Bee pleaded as she was dragged out. In the apartment, oblivious to the commotion in the reception area, Thomas proposed a toast to the future. Veronica smiled enigmatically, her eyes fixed on Camilla, who was bringing the juice to her lips. "To our family," Thomas said, raising his glass. Meanwhile, Bee ran desperately along the pavement, looking for another way to reach the apartment. That's when she saw the flower delivery truck parked. The delivery driver had left the key in the ignition while carrying a large arrangement to the lobby. In the apartment, Thomas's phone rang. It was the hospital. "Excuse me, I need to take this," he said, stepping away from the table. Veronica took the opportunity to lean towards Camilla. "Drink your juice, darling. It's special. I prepared it just for you," she said in a honeyed voice. The girl obeyed, taking a large gulp. Seconds later, her face paled. "I feel strange," Camilla murmured, bringing her hand to her forehead. "What's wrong, darling?" Veronica asked, a calculated concern in her voice. Before Camilla could answer, a crash came from the kitchen door. Bea burst into the apartment, panting. "Don't let her drink it!" The girl shouted. "I saw that woman putting something in the juice." Thomas rushed back upon hearing the noise. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" Veronica stood up, indignant. "That's absurd. This girl must be on drugs." At that moment, Camilla let out a whimper and slipped from her chair. Her eyes rolled back and her body began to tremble. "Camilla!" Thomas cried, rushing to support his daughter. "What's happening?" "It was her," Bea accused, pointing at Veronica. "She put something in the juice." "That's ridiculous." Veronica defended herself. "Thomas, this girl invaded our home. She must be a thief." Thomas, an experienced doctor, quickly examined his daughter. "She's having a severe allergic reaction. We need to get her to the hospital now." As Thomas picked up his daughter, Bea seized the confusion and grabbed the glass with the remaining juice, hiding it in her torn blouse. Veronica, noticing the gesture, shot her an icy glare that promised retaliation. "I'll call an ambulance," Thomas said, dialing the emergency number. "There's no time," Veronica replied, her voice now controlled. "Let's take your car. I'm a nurse. I can monitor her on the way." Thomas, desperate, agreed. Carrying Camilla, he headed to the elevator, followed by Veronica. Before stepping in, she turned to Bea. "You'll regret this," she whispered, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Nobody believes street children. The elevator doors closed, leaving Bea alone in the luxurious apartment, with the hidden evidence and the certainty that she had just challenged someone very dangerous. Looking around, the girl realized she only had minutes to decide her next step. Now she was involved in something much bigger than herself. St. Thomas's Hospital buzzed with activity as Thomas burst through the emergency doors with Camilla in his arms. His desperate expression cleared a path faster than any medical credential. Veronica, a few steps behind, maintained a facade of professional concern that fooled everyone. "Dr. Richmond, my daughter is having a severe allergic reaction," Thomas shouted to the on-call doctor. "Room 3 now," Dr. Richmond ordered, leading them down the white corridor. As the medical team surrounded Camilla, Veronica strategically positioned herself beside Thomas, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding her phone, discreetly deleting any message that could incriminate her. "It was so sudden," she murmured, calculated tears welling in her eyes. "We were just celebrating. That girl," Thomas ran a hand through his hair, "she said you put something in Camilla's drink." Veronica intensified her indignant gaze. "How can you believe that? An intruder, probably wanting to steal." "I'm not accusing you," Thomas hastened to say. "I'm confused. Camilla has never had food allergies." Dr. Richmond approached them. "We've stabilized your daughter. It looks like a reaction to some medication, not food. Strange." "Medication?" Thomas frowned. "She doesn't take any medication." Veronica quickly intervened. "I remember her mentioning a headache earlier. Maybe she took something without telling us." In Dr. Thomas's penthouse, Bea examined the apartment with the experienced eyes of someone who had learned to survive on the streets. She knew she needed proof, but she also knew she had little time. With the glass of juice hidden in her blouse, she looked for something that could confirm her suspicions about Veronica. In the master suite, she found a carefully locked medicine case. Using a hairpin found on the floor, she managed to open it, a skill acquired during long, cold nights when she needed to enter abandoned shelters. Inside the case, meticulously organized vials, all with legitimate medical labels. But a small vial hidden in a false compartment caught her attention. Unlabeled, it contained a transparent liquid. It seemed identical to what Veronica had put in Camilla's drink. She heard the elevator ascending. Someone was coming back. Quickly, Bea grabbed the mysterious vial, closed the case, and ran to the kitchen. With no other options, she hid in the cabinet under the sink. The door opened and the sound of Veronica's heels echoed through the apartment. Her steps were different now, no longer those of a concerned nurse, but those of a furious predator. She was on the phone. It didn't work. That street brat appeared out of nowhere. "No, Thomas doesn't suspect me, but the girl complicated everything. The plan continues. I just need more time." Bea barely breathed. Through the crack in the cabinet, she saw Veronica open a kitchen drawer and pull out a hidden envelope. From inside, she extracted what appeared to be documents and an old photograph. In the faded image, Veronica appeared with different hair beside a man and a child. There was something disturbing about the way she smiled in the Hugh photo. "This needs to disappear," Veronica murmured to herself, tearing the photo into pieces. Her phone rang again. Veronica answered promptly. "Yes, I'm going back to the hospital." "The invading girl is gone. She must have fled." "No, I didn't find the glass. Yes, I'll bring more efficient medications. Don't worry, soon Camilla won't be a problem anymore, and all of Thomas's fortune will be ours." When Veronica finally left, Bea waited a few minutes before leaving her hiding place. Her hands trembled as she collected the pieces of the torn photograph. With the glass, the mysterious vial, and the photographic fragments, she left the apartment via the service staircase. At the hospital, Camilla slept under the effect of sedatives. Thomas, sitting beside her, held her small hand. The invading girl's words echoed in his mind, but seemed too absurd to be considered. Veronica was respected at the hospital. She had an impeccable professional history. How could he suspect her? "How is she?" Veronica entered the room silently, carrying a cup of coffee for Thomas. "Better. The doctors said they didn't find a definitive cause. It might have been stress." Veronica sat beside him, offering the coffee. Her face was the image of compassion. "You need to rest. I can stay with her." Thomas hesitated for an almost imperceptible moment. "Thank you, but I prefer to stay." Something in Veronica's gaze hardened for an instant, but soon her mask of concern returned. "Of course, I understand. You're a wonderful father." In the waiting room, Bea had managed to enter the hospital by blending in with visitors. Her attentive eyes searched for someone who could help her. She saw an older nurse with a kind expression, organizing patient files. "Ma'am," Bea approached, "I need help. It's about Dr. Thomas's daughter." The nurse looked at the dirty girl, her torn clothes contrasting with the aseptic hospital environment. "Who are you, little one?" "My name is Bea. I know I just look like a street girl, but I have something important." She showed the glass carefully wrapped in a piece of cloth. "What is this?" "In this glass, there's a substance that the doctor's girlfriend put in his daughter's juice. She's making the girl sick on purpose." The nurse frowned, clearly skeptical. "That's a very serious accusation. Are you talking about Dr. Veronica?" "Yes, I have proof. Please, I just need you to test this drink." Nurse Teresa, as her badge indicated, studied the girl's desperate face. Something in the sincerity of those eyes moved her. With 30 years in the profession, she had developed a sixth sense for distinguishing truths from lies. "Come with me," she finally said, leading Bea to a small break room. "I can't promise anything, but I know someone in the lab." Meanwhile, Veronica had left Camilla's room to get water. In the hallway, her phone vibrated with a message. "Documents ready. Once the girl is out of the way, the will can be easily altered." She smiled, putting away her phone. Her plan was only temporarily postponed. She returned to the room, finding Thomas dozing in the chair. She approached Camilla, adjusting the girl's IV drip with professional precision. "Soon, darling," she whispered to the sleeping child. "Soon you'll be with your mother." What Veronica didn't realize was that Thomas wasn't completely asleep. His eyes opened slightly, just in time to catch those enigmatic words. A sense of unease grew in his chest. Something was wrong, very wrong. And perhaps that strange invading girl was the only person who had noticed. In the break room, Bea handed her evidence to Nurse Teresa. The glass with juice residue, the mysterious vial, and the pieces of the torn photograph. "Please, believe me," Bea pleaded. "No one else believes me. I've been watching this woman for weeks. She's not who she says she is." Teresa examined the items, her professional expression giving way to concern. "I'll ask them to analyze this immediately. Meanwhile, stay here and don't leave for anything." When Teresa left, Bea felt momentarily safe. Exhausted, she settled into the chair, allowing herself a brief rest. She didn't notice the figure watching her through the crack in the door, a nursing assistant who had witnessed everything and was now quickly dialing a number. "Veronica? It's Claudia. We have a problem. That street girl is here at the hospital." And she brought evidence. The hospital plunged into the quiet of dawn as Veronica received Claudia's message. Her face, usually controlled, contorted in momentary fury before reassuming her mask of serenity. With calculated movements, she put away her phone and checked if Thomas was still dozing in the armchair beside Camilla's bed. "I'll get some stronger coffee," she whispered, lightly touching his shoulder. "You need to stay awake. Thomas nodded, his eyes red from fatigue and worry. Something inside him had changed, a seed of doubt planted by the enigmatic words he had caught in his semi-sleep. As soon as Veronica left the room, he approached Camilla. His daughter slept deeply, her face still pale but breathing calmly. Suddenly, a disturbing memory emerged. In the last 4 months, since Veronica had definitively entered their lives, Camilla had suffered 5 inexplicable crises. Doctors couldn't find a conclusive diagnosis. Perhaps stress from her mother's passing, they suggested. And with each episode, it was Veronica who first noticed the symptoms, who suggested medications, who carefully prepared the girl's meals. Could it be possible? He murmured to himself, stroking his daughter's hair. The idea was so monstrous that his rational surgeon's mind resisted, but the scientist within him couldn't ignore the pattern. In the hospital corridors, Veronica walked with purpose, not towards the cafeteria, but to the small break room where, according to Claudia, Bea was waiting. Her ally in the scheme, Claudia worked as a nursing assistant thanks to forged documents, another piece in the elaborate plan they had been building for almost a year. Rounding the corner, however, she saw Nurse Teresa leaving the break room with a small box, presumably containing the evidence mentioned by Claudia. She quickly hid behind a supply cart, watching Teresa head to the laboratory. The plan needed to be adjusted. Inside the break room, Bea fought against sleep. Her eyelids were heavy, but fear kept her alert. The streets had taught her that moments of vulnerability could be fatal. She heard the door open slowly and cringed, instinctively seeking protection. "So you're the hero of the day," Claudia said, entering with a forced smile. "Teresa told me about you." Bea studied the woman with suspicion. Something in her tone sounded false. "I just want to help the girl," she replied cautiously. "Of course you do," Claudia approached, offering a cup of hot chocolate. "You must be cold and hungry. Here, you'll feel better." Bea looked at the cup, hesitant. "On the streets, you learn never to accept anything from strangers without questioning it. No, thank you. I'm not thirsty." Claudia's smile wavered for a second. "Come on, child. You need to hydrate. Doctor's orders." "Nurse Teresa told me not to leave here and not to talk to anyone," Bea replied, retreating to the corner of the room. Claudia dropped the feigned kindness. "Listen here, you brat, you don't know who you're messing with. Drink this now or—" The door opened again, interrupting the threat. Teresa entered, surprised to find Claudia there. "What are you doing here, Claudia? This isn't your department." "I just came to check if the girl needed anything," Claudia replied, resuming her artificial smile. "I brought hot chocolate." Teresa frowned, noticing Bea's evident discomfort. "Thank you, but I'm looking after her. You can return to your post." When Claudia left, clearly annoyed, Teresa turned to Bea. "Don't trust anyone here except me and Dr. Leonard from the lab. I just handed over the samples for analysis." "And now?" Bea asked, her large eyes reflecting fear and hope. "Now we wait. And pray we're wrong." In the hospital lab, Dr. Leonard examined the contents of the glass with growing concern. Preliminary analysis had detected a substance that shouldn't be present in fruit juice, a medication used to induce symptoms similar to allergic reactions. The discovery was disturbing enough to warrant further analysis. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, Thomas leafed through his daughter's medical chart, reviewing every incident, every unexplained symptom of the past few months. As a doctor, he had trusted his colleagues' diagnoses. As a father, he had been so consumed by work and his new relationship with Veronica that he failed to connect the dots. "Anything in the coffee?" Veronica asked, returning to the room with 2 steaming cups. The smile on her face was impeccable, her eyes calculatively compassionate. "I'm just reviewing Camilla's medical history," Thomas replied, studying her reaction. "It's strange how she started having health problems just when we moved into the new apartment. For a thousandth of a second, something in Veronica's eyes hardened, but soon her expression of concern returned. The doctors spoke of post-traumatic stress from the loss of her mother. Children often express emotions through physical symptoms. "Yes, but it's curious how the symptoms seem to worsen after she eats something you prepare," Thomas said, keeping his tone casual. Veronica froze momentarily. Recovering quickly, she forced a laugh. "What are you implying, Thomas? That I'm a terrible cook?" "No, just observing patterns. It's what doctors do." Veronica's phone vibrated. She checked it discreetly. A message from Claudia informing her that the attempt to neutralize B had failed. They needed an alternative plan and fast. "I think you need to rest, dear," Veronica said softly. "This night has been traumatic. Why don't you go home and take a shower while I look after Camilla? You'll come back refreshed." Thomas considered the suggestion. Part of him wanted to stay, but another part needed to investigate further. "Perhaps you're right. I'll go home, take a quick shower and come back." "Perfect. I'll look after her as if she were my own daughter." The words, meant to comfort, sent a shiver down Thomas's spine. In the lab, Dr. Leonard was finishing his analysis when he received an unexpected call. It was an old friend, a detective inspector from the federal police. "Leonard, it's Mark. I got your email about the suspicious nurse. You won't believe it, but that name came up in one of our investigations. Veronica Maxwell doesn't exist. Her professional registration was forged." "My God," Leonard murmured, looking at the test results. "I've just confirmed that there are toxic substances in the child's juice." "Maintain total discretion," Mark instructed. "We're tracking a woman who has been infiltrating affluent families, causing unexplained health problems in children to manipulate vulnerable parents. I'm sending a team right now." In the break room, Teresa returned with news for B. Dr. Leonard confirmed there was medication in the juice, something that could cause severe reactions. "I knew it!" B exclaimed. "We have to tell Dr. Thomas. He went home a little while ago, but he'll be back soon. Meanwhile, the police are on their way." B felt a momentary relief. Finally, someone believed her. But her survival instinct pulsed with alarm. "And the girl? Is she safe?" Teresa paled. "Veronica is with her right now." In the hospital room, Camilla slowly began to awaken. Her confused eyes met not her father's face, but Veronica's, who was adjusting something in the intravenous drip. "Where's my dad?" the girl asked, her voice weak. "He went home to rest a bit, darling," Veronica replied with false sweetness. "But don't worry, soon we'll all be together in a better place." In the apartment, Thomas rummaged through the suite Veronica occasionally occupied. At the back of a drawer, he found a woman's wallet, different from the one he knew. The documents inside revealed another name, Olivia Carter. Along with it, an old photo showed Veronica, or Olivia, beside a man and a girl. On the back, an inscription, "Robert and Clara, rest in peace, my dears." Thomas's blood ran cold. Who was this woman he planned to marry, really? And more importantly, his daughter was alone with her at this very moment. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Veronica prepared her escape. With Camilla sedated again, thanks to a dose stealthily administered, she planned to transport her to a safe location where she could finalize her plan. She had already set aside a wheelchair and prepared fake transfer documents for another hospital. What she didn't expect was that, at that exact moment, B was escaping Teresa's watch and running through the corridors towards Camilla's room, determined not to let history repeat itself. Not this time, not with this family, because on the streets, B had learned that sometimes we need to fight for people we barely know, simply because it's the right thing to do. The hospital corridors seemed endless as Thomas headed to Camilla's room. The phone in his hand vibrated incessantly, Dr. Leonard trying to reach him with news about the analyses, but the call repeatedly dropped in the elevator and stairwell areas with no signal. "Dad?" Camilla's voice, fragile and sleepy, was the first thing Thomas heard as he entered the room. An immense relief filled his chest. She was awake, conscious. "Hi, Princess," he replied, rushing to hug her. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Where's Aunt Veronica?" Thomas hesitated, his eyes quickly scanning the empty room. "I don't know." "Wasn't she with you?" "She left when she saw you arriving through the window. She said she was going to get some medicine." Thomas's heart pounded. "How long ago?" "I don't know. I'm sleepy." Examining his daughter, Thomas noticed dilated pupils, a sign of recent sedative use. With quick movements, he checked the IV drip. The clear liquid looked normal, but years of medical practice had taught him that appearances can be deceiving. He disconnected the IV immediately. "What's wrong, Dad? Is everything okay?" "Yes, Princess. I'm just going to ask them to change this IV." Thomas pressed the emergency button. In the outer corridor, B slinked like a shadow among visitors and staff, heading towards Camilla's room. Her path was interrupted when she spotted Veronica, hastily leaving a restricted room, carrying a small medical case. Instinctively, she hid behind a cleaning cart. Veronica, or Olivia, her real name, moved with determination, without her usual calculated elegance. Her disguise was beginning to crumble under the pressure. As she passed the cart, Bea heard her murmur on the phone, "Yes, I'm leaving now. The plan has changed. Thomas discovered something. No, the girl is sedated. I'm taking her to the contingency address. Prepare the final documents. We don't have any more time." Bea felt a chill. She didn't understand all the details, but she grasped the essential. Camilla was still in danger. Meanwhile, in the lab, Teresa and Dr. Leonard received alarming information from Detective Inspector Mark. Olivia Carter, the detective explained, showing photos on his tablet. Former psychiatric nurse. Specialist in medications that cause symptoms mimicking natural illnesses. We suspect she's involved in at least 2 previous cases of financial manipulation of wealthy families through fabricated illnesses. "My God," Teresa murmured. "And she's with Dr. Thomas's daughter right now." "Not for long," Mark replied. "We have agents positioned at all hospital exits, but we need you to locate her internally without causing panic." In Camilla's room, the newly arrived nurse examined the IV drip removed by Thomas. "Doctor, this doesn't appear to be the standard solution," she commented, frowning. "I'll take it for analysis immediately." Thomas, sitting beside his daughter, tried to remain calm. "Camilla, I need you to tell me exactly what Veronica has been doing when you're alone." The girl thought for a moment, fighting against the induced sleep. "She always brings special juices. She says they have vitamins to make me strong like you. After I drink them, I always feel strange, sleepy." The confirmation of his suspicions was like a punch to the gut. As a doctor, he had sworn to do no harm. As a father, he had inadvertently exposed his daughter to danger. "Dad, why was the street girl at our dinner?" She seemed scared. "What girl, Camilla?" "The one who invaded our home." "I saw her before, you know. She's always near the building. Once, when Veronica wasn't looking, she gave me a note telling me not to drink anything the lady with the fake smile gave me. I thought she was crazy." Thomas felt the weight of the revelation. That street child had tried to warn them multiple times. "Where is this note, Camilla?" "I threw it away. But I think I have another one. She threw it through my bedroom window last week." In the corridor, Bea followed Veronica at a distance, watching her enter the hospital pharmacy with her forged head nurse authorization. When she came out, the case seemed fuller. Determined, Bea continued to follow her to the elevator. Veronica entered, but before the doors closed, Bea slipped inside, surprising her. "You!" Veronica exclaimed, her face transforming into a mask of fury. "I know who you are," Bea said, trying to sound brave despite her fear. "I know what you're doing to the girl." Veronica laughed, a cold sound that didn't match her carefully constructed image. "And who would believe you? A street girl against a respected head nurse?" "Dr. Leonard believed me, and so did the police." Veronica's smile wavered momentarily. The elevator doors opened in the underground car park. "Get out of my way," Veronica ordered. Pushing Bea, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "I know exactly what you're capable of," Bea replied, standing firm. "I saw you poisoning the girl for weeks. I saw you swapping her medicines." Veronica pulled a small vial from her case. "Do you know what this is?" "In small doses, it causes symptoms. In larger doses." The elevator stopped on another floor and an elderly woman entered, interrupting the threat. Veronica immediately recomposed her professional mask. In Camilla's room, Thomas received a visit from Teresa and Dr. Leonard. "Thomas, we need to speak with you urgently," Leonard said, closing the door. "It's about Veronica. She's not who she says she is." "I know," Thomas replied gravely. "I found documents in the name of Olivia Carter in our apartment." "The police are here," Teresa informed. "She is suspected of manipulating patients to gain financial advantages. The substances found in Camilla's juice confirm this." "Where is she now?" Leonard asked. "I don't know, but I fear she's trying to escape," Thomas replied. "And there's a street girl who seems to be the only one who realized everything from the start." "Bea," Teresa confirmed. "She was in the break room but disappeared. I think she went after Veronica." Thomas's phone rang. It was the hospital reception. "Dr. Albright?" Dr. Maxwell just requested your daughter's transfer for specialized treatment at the Carter Institute. She has already sent the documentation signed by you." "I didn't sign anything," Thomas exclaimed. "Block that immediately. It's an attempted kidnapping." In the car park, Veronica pulled B by the arm, hiding among the cars. The arrival of the elderly woman had frustrated her initial plan, but now she had a new one: to use the girl as collateral. "You're coming with me," she whispered threateningly. "If you try anything, I'll use this on you." She showed the vial again. "Why are you doing this?" B asked, trying to buy time. "Why hurt an innocent child?" Something in Veronica's eyes wavered, a shadow of humanity amidst the calculating madness. "You wouldn't understand. Some people are born with everything: money, family, love. Others have to take these things for themselves. Like you tried to do before? With other families?" Veronica's face hardened again. "Too smart for your own good." They approached a black car parked in an isolated area. Veronica typed the password and the doors unlocked. "Get in." "No," B replied, resisting. "Get in or what, Olivia Carter?" The male voice came from behind them. Detective Inspector Mark, accompanied by 2 police officers, blocked the exit. From the other side, Thomas appeared with Teresa and Leonard. "It's over, Veronica. Or should I say Olivia?" Thomas said, his voice trembling with contained rage. For a moment, Veronica seemed cornered. Then, in a desperate move, she pulled B in front of her body, pressing the vial against her neck. "No one comes closer, or she gets a lethal dose." "Release the girl," Mark ordered. "You're surrounded. Back off or she dies right here." Time seemed to freeze. B, trembling with fear but still determined, looked into Thomas's eyes. In that brief moment, a silent understanding passed between them. 2 people who, despite different worlds, now shared a common purpose. With a quick movement that surprised everyone, B stomped hard on Veronica's foot and simultaneously bit her arm. The distraction was enough for Thomas to lunge forward, immobilizing Veronica, while Mark and the police officers disarmed her. "You don't understand," Veronica screamed as she was handcuffed. "I deserved that life. I deserved that fortune. That spoiled girl has everything I never had." As the police led Veronica away, Thomas knelt before B, examining the bruises on her arm. "You saved my daughter," he said, his voice choked. "How can I thank you?" B, finally allowing herself to look like the child she was, let tears stream down her face. "I just wanted someone to believe me." "I believe you," Thomas replied, holding her small, dirty hands. "And I promise that from now on, I will always believe you." At the hospital, Camilla fully awoke from the sedative, the effects of the substances administered by Veronica slowly leaving her system. When her father entered the room, leading B by the hand, her eyes widened in recognition. "It's the girl from the note," Camilla said, smiling weakly. "Yes," Thomas confirmed. "And thanks to her, we are all safe now." Meanwhile, at the police station, investigators uncovered the extent of Veronica's scheme. Forged documents, multiple identities, and a meticulous plan to manipulate Thomas's will, ensuring that should anything happen to Camilla, the entire fortune would go to her devoted stepmother. But what no one expected was what the police found in Veronica's apartment: an altar with photos of her biological family, parents who abandoned her in childhood, leaving her to grow up in state institutions. Beside it, clipped news articles about wealthy families and their privileged children. Veronica's obsession wasn't just about money. It was about a life she never had, a childhood she was denied, a parental love she had never known. In her distorted mind, taking these things from others was a form of perverse justice. 3 weeks passed since that fateful night. The London autumn painted the parks with golden hues as new routines settled in. In the Albrights' apartment, Veronica's absence left a vacuum, not of longing but of distrust. How does a family rebuild trust after having been so profoundly betrayed? Camilla recovered quickly, her young body eliminating the last traces of the substances Veronica had administered for months. Physically, doctors assured there would be no permanent sequelae. Emotionally, however, the scars were deeper, harder to assess. "Dad, why do good people do bad things?" Camilla asked one night, while Thomas helped her with her math homework. The question caught Thomas off guard. How to explain to an 8-year-old child the complexity of human wickedness? How to talk about trauma, abandonment, and cycles of abuse without destroying her faith in the goodness of the world. Sometimes, he began, choosing his words carefully, people who seem good aren't who they pretend to be. And sometimes people who were hurt as children end up hurting other people when they grow up. Like Veronica. Yes, like her. Will she be imprisoned forever? Thomas sighed. Not forever, but for a good while, and afterward, she'll receive help to understand why she did what she did. Camilla nodded, absorbing the answer with the peculiar seriousness she had developed since the events. And B? Where is she now? The question hit Thomas like a punch to the gut. In the chaotic weeks following Veronica's arrest, between police statements, medical consultations for Camilla, and media scrutiny, something crucial had slipped through the cracks. The girl who had saved his daughter. After that night at the hospital, B simply disappeared. Teresa, the nurse who had believed her, said that social workers had been called, but B fled before they could intervene. Street children are afraid of the system, Teresa explained. They prefer the dangerous freedom of the streets to institutionalization. We need to find her, Thomas decided at that moment. She didn't just save you, Camilla. She saved us from a trap that I, as an adult, couldn't see. The next day, Thomas began a search. First formally, he registered a request at the family court, hired private investigators. Then, informally, he personally visited shelters, NGOs, distributed photos, spoke with homeless people. Meanwhile, in a distant neighborhood in the East End of London, B had returned to her routine of survival. After the adrenaline of the hospital events, life on the street seemed strangely empty. For years, she had convinced herself that she didn't need anyone, that solitude was preferable to dependence. Now something had changed. Hey girl, you're B, right? An older boy approached her as she collected recyclable materials. She recoiled, suspicious. Who wants to know? Some rich doctor is looking for you. He's offering a reward and everything. B's heart pounded. What doctor? The one from the case that was in the newspaper. The one about the crazy nurse. B feigned disinterest. So what? What does he want with me? The boy shrugged. I don't know. But if I were you, I'd show up. It might be your chance to get out of this life. When the boy walked away, B allowed herself a moment of hope. Could it be possible? But soon reality set in. Years of disappointments had built high walls around her heart. Adults promised, then disappeared. It had always been like that. In the Albrights' apartment, another transformation was occurring. Veronica's absence had created not just physical, but emotional space. Father and daughter, previously distanced by the manipulative presence of the fake nurse, were rediscovering each other. You know what I miss most about Mom? Camilla asked one night while Thomas awkwardly braided her hair for bedtime. What, princess? The way she used to sing to me before bed. No matter how tired she was from the hospital, she always sang. Thomas felt his eyes well up. Since the premature loss of his wife to a brain aneurysm 2 years prior, mentioning Caroline had become too painful. Veronica skillfully had fed this silence. We need to move on, she would say. Now Thomas realized how this imposed silence had hindered both their grieving processes. Your mother had a beautiful voice, he said, his voice choked. Do you remember that little fish song she used to sing? Camilla's face lit up. Yes, sing it for me, Dad. I don't have a beautiful voice like hers, but I can try. That night marked the beginning of a new tradition, speaking openly about Caroline, keeping her memory alive, without fear of the pain that accompanied the longing. At the police station, Detective Inspector Mark met with the prosecutor to discuss Veronica Olivia's case. The evidence was abundant. In addition to the substances found in Camilla's juice and IV drip, investigations revealed a disturbing pattern of behavior. We found connections to 2 other cases, Mark explained, spreading photos on the table. In Manchester 5 years ago, she approached a widowed businessman with a teenage son. The boy began to exhibit unexplained neurological symptoms. When doctors started to suspect something, she disappeared. And the second case? The prosecutor asked. Birmingham 3 years ago. This time a retired judge with a granddaughter under his care. The child barely survived. Olivia fled with almost £1 million in jewelry and cash. What happens to a person to reach this point? The prosecutor murmured. examining the preliminary psychological dossier. Severe childhood abandonment, early institutionalization, possible untreated personality disorder, Mark read. The system failed her as a child, and she decided to make the system pay through her victims. In the interrogation room, Olivia Carter, her true name finally confirmed, remained impassive. The mask of Veronica Maxwell, completely abandoned, revealed a different woman, cold, calculating, remorseless. "You know what's ironic?" "She said to the assigned lawyer. "I really did care about Thomas. If the girl didn't exist, we would have been happy." "Ms. Carter, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation," the lawyer replied, uncomfortable. "The accusations are serious. Attempted poisoning, fraud, identity theft, extortion." "I know exactly what I did," Olivia interrupted, her tone almost bored. "And I would do it all again. Do you know why? Because I was born to live that life. It was what I deserved." Meanwhile, on the streets of London, the search for B continued. An informant had indicated her possible location, a viaduct in the East End where groups of homeless children found temporary shelter. Thomas, accompanied by Claudia Rivers, a social worker specializing in vulnerable children, surveyed the area. "Doctor, I need to warn you," Claudia said as they walked. "Even if we find B, the process won't be simple. Children like her develop deep distrust of adults and institutions." "I understand, but I can't just go back to my comfortable life knowing she's on the streets," Thomas replied. "She risked everything for a girl she barely knew. As a doctor, as a father, as a human being, I can't ignore that." It was Teresa who finally achieved the breakthrough they needed. Using her contacts with social projects, she located a volunteer who regularly distributed meals at the site where B had last been seen. "She always comes on Wednesdays. Around 6, the volunteer informed. "But she's skittish. She doesn't trust easily." The following Wednesday, Thomas and Camilla, who had insisted on participating, accompanied the food distribution team. Camilla carried something precious, a drawing she had made for B, showing two girls holding hands under a rainbow. When B appeared, her gaze first met Camilla's, then Thomas's. For a moment she thought of fleeing, her self-preservation instinct screaming to avoid connections that would inevitably bring more pain. But something kept her still. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps that small, persistent flicker of hope that, against all odds, refused to be extinguished. "Hi, B," Camilla said, approaching carefully and extending the drawing. "I made this for you." B accepted the paper, her eyes scanning the colorful figures. A girl with neat hair and a dress, Camilla, obviously, and another with messy hair and simple clothes, herself, both smiling under a colorful sky. "It's pretty," she murmured, her voice hoarse from days without speaking to anyone. Thomas then approached, maintaining a respectful distance. "I've been looking for you, B," she nodded. "I heard. I wanted to thank you personally. And also," he hesitated, choosing his words carefully, "I wanted to ask if we could talk. About the future." "What future?" Bea asked, her distrust evident. "Yours, ours, about possibilities." Camilla, with the direct simplicity of children, verbalized what her father was trying to say delicately. "We want you to come live with us." Bea's eyes widened, moving from Camilla to Thomas, seeking confirmation. "It's true," he confirmed. "First temporarily, if you prefer. I know a family court judge who can expedite temporary guardianship while we get to know each other better." "Why?" Bea's question contained years of disappointments, abandonments, and broken promises. "Because you saved what is most precious to me," Thomas replied simply. "And because every child deserves a home." In that moment, something fundamental began to change in the lives of three people whom fate had brought together in the most improbable way. It wasn't an instant happy ending. Real stories rarely have such clean and perfect conclusions. It was the beginning of a complex journey, full of challenges, setbacks, and progress. For B, it meant taking the most frightening step of all, trusting again. For Camilla, it meant understanding that families come in many forms, and that sharing her father's love didn't mean losing it. And for Thomas, it was a chance to redeem himself from his blindness, to rebuild not only his family life, but also his faith in humanity. Meanwhile, in a solitary cell, Olivia Carter faced her own image reflected in the small metal mirror on the wall. Her eyes, once precise instruments of manipulation, now revealed something rarely seen, a flicker of recognition of the extent of her actions. Not regret, perhaps, but understanding. How had an abandoned child transformed into the monster she now saw reflected? At what moment had the victim decided to become the tormentor? Questions without simple answers, in a story where the lines between victims and tormentors sometimes blurred, reminding us that the human heart is a territory of shadows and lights, of failures and redemptions, of wounds and healings, all happening simultaneously, in constant motion like life itself. 6 months later, the apartment in Kensington took on a new atmosphere. The redecoration wasn't just aesthetic, it was symbolic. Every trace of Veronica's presence had been removed, replaced by elements that reflected the new family dynamic taking shape. "I think this one looks better here," Camilla said, helping Bea position a colorful painting on the wall of the room they now shared. The decision to share the space had come from the girls themselves, surprising Thomas, who had prepared a separate room for Bea. "I'm scared to sleep alone," Bea had confessed on one of the first nights, when nightmares still frequently tormented her. "Me too," Camilla had replied sincerely. That nascent complicity now blossomed into a friendship that defied social and origin differences. Together, they created a new vocabulary, part street slang that Bea taught, part sophisticated expressions that Camilla shared, a unique language that belonged only to the two of them. In the kitchen, Thomas was finishing Sunday lunch, a new tradition established to strengthen family bonds. Guests arrived: Teresa, the nurse who had believed in Bea from the very first moment, Detective Inspector Mark and his wife, Judge Helen, responsible for regularizing Bea's guardianship, and Mrs. Zelma, the housekeeper who now also played the role of confidant and advisor to the girls. "Roast beef, perfectly done," Thomas announced, bringing the platter to the table. "Wow, Doctor, you've evolved in the kitchen," Teresa joked, recalling his first disastrous lunches. Thomas smiled. The culinary journey was just a small part of his broader transformation. After the trauma with Veronica, he had deeply re-evaluated his priorities. He had reduced his workload at the hospital, delegated administrative responsibilities at the clinic he ran, and committed to therapy, both individual and family. "My dad is a professional chef now," Camilla proudly declared. "Exaggerating," Thomas replied, affectionately ruffling his daughter's hair. Bea watched the scene with a mixture of fascination and caution. 6 months weren't enough to erase 11 years of street survival, of successive abandonments, of learning not to trust. Adapting to family life was a daily process of small victories and occasional setbacks. "How was your week at the new school, Bea?" Judge Helen asked as they served themselves. Bea hesitated, her gaze meeting Thomas's, seeking silent support. "You can tell the truth," he encouraged. "We're here to help, not to judge." "Difficult," Bea finally admitted. "The other children, they look at me differently." "Why?" Mrs. Zelma questioned. "Because they know I used to live on the street." One girl asked if I ate garbage. An uncomfortable silence hung over the table. "I told them that Bea is smarter than everyone else in the class combined," Camilla interjected fiercely, "and that she saved my life when no one believed her." "And it's true," Thomas agreed. "Perhaps we need to have a conversation with the headmistress about promoting more empathy among the students." "No need," Bea said, surprising everyone. "I can handle it. I've faced worse." The pride in Thomas's eyes was evident. In moments like this, Bea's inner strength left him speechless. After lunch, while the girls showed their drawings to the guests, Thomas and Detective Inspector Mark conversed privately on the balcony. "How's the case going?" Thomas asked. "Olivia Carter has been formally charged in 3 different states," Mark replied. "The main trial begins next month." "Has she shown any remorse?" Mark hesitated. "Not exactly remorse, but there has been a change. She started talking about her own childhood, agreed to work with psychiatrists. It's a start." "Did she ask about Camilla?" "No, but she asked me to give this to you." Mark extended a sealed envelope. Thomas accepted it reluctantly. "It's already been checked." "There's nothing dangerous," Mark assured. Later, when everyone had left and the girls were asleep, Thomas opened the envelope. Inside, a brief letter written in the elegant handwriting he had once admired. "Thomas, I do not seek forgiveness, for I know I do not deserve it. Nor will I offer explanations. They would merely be justifications for the unjustifiable. I write only to say that, amidst the falsehood I constructed, one feeling was genuine. I truly cared for you. Perhaps it is the closest I have ever come to loving someone. If there is a lesson to be learned from all of this, perhaps it is that even monsters like me were once frightened children. Take good care of that street girl. Do not let her become what I became. O.C. Thomas folded the letter slowly. What to feel in the face of such words? Anger, pity, a confused mixture of emotions that had no name. He decided that for now he didn't need to define it. Part of his personal journey was learning to live with ambiguity, with questions without clear answers, with the recognition that the human heart rarely operates in absolute extremes of good and evil. The next morning, the family routine followed its course. B, awake before everyone as usual, a habit hard to break after years on the streets, prepared breakfast under Mrs. Zelma's affectionate supervision. I think I'm getting the hang of it, she commented, skillfully flipping a pancake. You're getting better than me, Zelma replied with genuine pride. Camilla appeared, still sleepy. Good morning. What a lovely smell. Thomas joined them shortly after, carrying some documents. His face showed a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. Good morning, family, he said, sitting down. I have something important for us to discuss. The girls exchanged intrigued glances. B, remember when I talked about temporary guardianship? Thomas continued. She nodded, suddenly tense. The 6 months are almost up. We need to decide the next steps. B's heart pounded. This was it. The moment she secretly feared, when the bubble of security would burst, and she would be sent back to the streets or to some institution. I understand, she murmured, lowering her head. Thank you for everything you've done for me so far. What are you talking about? Thomas interrupted, confused. Then, realizing the misunderstanding, he hastened. B, I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking if you'd like to stay, permanently. The girl's eyes widened. What do you mean? Thomas placed the documents on the table. These are adoption papers. If you feel ready, I'd like to officially adopt you. You would legally be my daughter, just like Camilla. We'd be real sisters, Camilla exclaimed, jumping from her chair with enthusiasm. B looked at the documents as if they were written in a foreign language. The idea seemed simultaneously too wonderful to be real and too frightening to be accepted without fear. You don't have to answer now, Thomas hastened, noticing her confusion. It's a big decision. We can continue as we are until you feel ready. What if I'm never ready? B asked, verbalizing her greatest fear. What if I don't know how to be part of a family? Thomas smiled gently. You are already part of this family, B. The paper merely formalizes what we already feel. Besides, Camilla added with the direct simplicity of children, no one here really knows how to be a family. We're all learning together. The unexpected wisdom of those words touched B deeply. It was true. This wasn't a conventional family built on established traditions. It was a family under construction, each member bringing their own scars and hopes to the process. Can I think about it for a bit? She finally asked. All the time you need, Thomas assured. That afternoon, while Camilla had ballet class, B asked to visit a special place. Thomas took her to the viaduct where she used to sleep, the spot where she had been found 6 months earlier. In silence, he watched the girl walk among the familiar debris, touching graffiti-covered walls, picking up a small plastic bag hidden between bricks, her few possessions she hadn't been able to take. Here, she finally said, showing Thomas a small cavity in the wall. This is where I used to keep important things. From the hiding place, she pulled out a crumpled photograph, a young woman holding a baby. My mother, she explained, her voice almost inaudible. The only thing I have of her. A social worker gave it to me when I was 7. Thomas knelt beside her, respecting that sacred moment of connection with the past. She left me at the door of an orphanage when I was a baby, B continued. The social worker said she was very sick, that she couldn't take care of me, but that she loved me. I'm sure she did, Thomas confirmed softly. If I become your daughter, B hesitated, struggling with the words. Can I still remember her? Can I keep this photo? The question broke Thomas's heart. Of course you can. She will always be a part of you, B. I would never ask you to forget her. What if I want to look for her one day? I will help you if that is your wish. Bea nodded, absorbing those words. Then she carefully put the photo in her pocket and looked around one last time. I think I'm ready to go home now, she finally said. The following week, in a small ceremony at the courthouse, Beatrice Santos officially became Beatrice Santos Albright. Judge Helen moved, signed the final documents while Thomas, Camilla, and a small group of friends applauded. It's official now, the judge declared. You are a family before the law, as you already were in your hearts. That night, an intimate celebration gathered the people who had made that moment possible. Teresa, who first believed in Bea. Mark, who ensured justice was done. Helen, who expedited the legal process. And Mrs. Zelma, who with silent wisdom had helped heal invisible wounds. When everyone had left and the house fell silent, Thomas found the girls on the balcony, watching the lights of London. What are you thinking about? He asked, sitting between them. How different the city looks from up here, Bea replied. On the streets you only see what's in front of you. Here you can see the horizon. That's very profound, Camilla commented, impressed. I learned it from a book your father gave me, Bea confessed, smiling. Thomas hugged them both, feeling the weight and lightness of that moment. A year ago, his life seemed perfectly structured, only to reveal itself as a fragile construction based on lies. Now rebuilt from the rubble, it had a different solidity, not the artificial rigidity of perfection, but the resilient flexibility of the real, the honest, the imperfect yet true. You know what I like most about our family? Camilla asked, breaking the contemplative silence. What? Thomas and Bea replied simultaneously. That we chose to stay together, even when it was difficult. Bea reflected on those simple words, choices. Her life had been defined by their absence, born into circumstances she didn't ask for, abandoned for reasons beyond her control, surviving in a world that rarely offered real alternatives. Now, for the first time, she had chosen her path, chosen to trust again, chosen to risk her heart, chosen to be part of something bigger than herself. Let's make a vow, Camilla suddenly proposed, that no matter what happens, we will always tell each other the truth. No secrets, no lies, even when the truth is difficult, Bea asked. Especially when it's difficult, Thomas confirmed. It was silence that made us vulnerable before. The truth, even if painful, will always be our foundation. The three hands met in the center, sealing that promise under the starry sky of London. A simple yet profound promise, of honesty, of acceptance, of unconditional love. Not a guarantee that there would be no more pain or challenges, but a commitment to face them together, eyes open, hearts connected. And so as night advanced over the city, three people improbably brought together by fate, tragedy, and redemption found their way home. Not just the luxurious apartment overlooking the park, but that deeper, more enduring home that exists when we finally allow others to see our shadows and still choose to stay by our side, because, in the end, that's what family means. Not the absence of shadows, but the courage to illuminate the dark corners together, knowing that what we find there won't diminish love, but only make it truer, more resilient, more real.